All right, welcome back everyone to the deep dive. So today we're going to jump into something I think pretty fascinating. We're going to be looking at the world of pipe and tube bending machines.
Yeah, pipe and tube bending.
I know it sounds maybe not the most
Exciting.
exciting thing, but it is
It
actually.
really is when you start to think about it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we've got this great new market report from Cognitive Market Research. Came out just today, April 10th, 2025. It's packed full of some really cool data. So
Yeah, and we're going to try to pull out the key insights from this report for you all so that you can really understand this market, where it is, what the future might look like,
right,
and all the cool technological developments that are happening without, overwhelming you with all the little details.
Yeah, exactly. We want to give you the good stuff.
Yeah.
And these machines, they're not something you think about every day, probably.
But they're incredibly important. They really are.
They're essential.
Yeah, when you start to think about it.
Yeah, if you think about the infrastructure we use every day.
Yeah.
The products that we use, all of it relies on pipes and tubes.
Cars, airplanes, buildings.
That's right. Yeah, transportation, energy systems, everything.
Yeah. So this market, the numbers really show it.
Yeah.
They're huge.
It was estimated in 2024 at about $5,562.5 million US.
Wow.
Globally.
Yeah.
And it's projected to reach 7,554.3 million by 2032.
Okay.
With a CAGR, compound annual growth rate, of 3.9%.
So steady growth.
Yeah, steady and strong, indicating a real underlying demand.
Yeah, definitely. So let's kind of unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
The current market, what's driving this growth? Why is this happening?
Well, the report identifies a few key things.
Okay.
One is just increasing demand.
Okay.
Across several key industries. So, the automotive sector, aerospace, construction, shipbuilding,
big industry,
manufacturing in general.
Yeah.
All of these industries depend on pipes and tubes that are bent precisely.
Yeah. So it's not just like,
exactly.
you're bending a pipe. It
has to be done very carefully.
Yeah.
For hydraulic systems in cars.
Right, or like
aerospace applications.
The wings of a plane.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So very intricate.
Yeah. And it's not just, I think, we need more machines. It's that the technology is getting better too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The technology is evolving rapidly. Yeah. CNC-controlled machines, for example.
Yeah, and that's like computer.
Exactly. Computer numerical control.
So the computer's controlling the bend.
That's right. It automates and guides the process.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Much more precise.
Yeah.
And then you've got automation as well.
Okay.
And a shift towards what are called electric servo-driven systems.
Okay. And so for the listener who might not, know much about these machines.
Yeah. So instead of traditional hydraulics,
right,
these are using electric motors for control.
Oh, okay.
And that allows for even more precise control.
Wow. Okay. So more efficient.
Yeah. Greater efficiency.
Less waste, more accurate.
Less waste, more accurate. That's exactly right.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found really interesting in this report is talk about sustainability.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this world of pipe and tube bending?
Well, I think, there's this growing focus on energy efficient and environmentally friendly manufacturing.
Right.
And so that's driving demand for machines that can help achieve those goals, machines that use less energy, produce less waste.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
So sustainability is becoming a real driver.
Yeah. Yeah. And this idea of automation.
Yeah.
It keeps coming up.
It does. It's really a key factor.
Yeah.
Because, in both manufacturing and construction, there's this trend towards more automation.
Okay.
And so if you can automate this complex bending process, you're going to see gains.
Yeah, less labor. Right.
Exactly. Less labor, more efficiency, greater speed and accuracy.
Yeah.
So companies are constantly looking for ways to streamline those processes.
Right.
And boost output, and these machines help with that.
Yeah, for sure. The report also mentions, cost effectiveness and what it calls smart technology.
Yeah.
How do those fit into the picture?
Well, cost effectiveness is always a priority.
Of course.
Right. Particularly in metal fabrication.
Yeah.
And so integrating smart technologies, things like advanced computer control, sensors, that allows companies to be more efficient with materials.
Right. Yeah.
Reduce operational costs.
Yeah. Okay.
And, we can't forget one of the fundamental drivers here is just overall expansion.
Like, we need more stuff.
We need more stuff.
Yeah.
Industrial production is expanding globally.
Right. So we need more of these machines.
So naturally, we need more of these machines to meet that demand.
Okay. And this is, sometimes these things can get a little abstract, but the report actually has a really good example of this innovation in action.
Yes.
This company, AMBO.
Yeah, so AMO, in September 2023, they introduced this next-generation CNC tube bender.
Oh.
And the really key thing here is that it incorporates AI-powered automation. So it reduces the need for manual input, improves efficiency.
Wow.
And likely reduces errors.
It's like the machine's getting smarter.
The machine is getting smarter.
Yeah.
It's a really good illustration of these trends in action.
Okay, so to kind of sum up where the market is now, it's, $5.5 billion roughly in 2024, driven by these core industries, helped by the technological advancements, focus on efficiency, sustainability.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move into some of the trends that are shaping this market.
Okay.
Like, what are we seeing happen?
Yeah, what are we seeing happening? So, just to reiterate that figure from 2024, $5.5 billion approximately.
Huge.
It's a substantial market.
Yeah.
Beyond those, those broad sectors we talked about.
Okay.
The report highlights oil and gas, HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and infrastructure development as really important drivers.
Those make sense.
Yeah.
Huge projects.
Huge projects, lots of pipes and tubes.
Yeah, like bridges and stadiums and...
Yeah, exactly. Complex system.
Yeah, got it.
And we're seeing a shift in bending technologies themselves.
Okay, how so?
So there's this acceleration in the adoption of electromechanical and hydraulic bending.
Okay.
And this is because they offer higher productivity, greater accuracy, and lower maintenance.
Ah, okay. Less downtime.
Less downtime.
It's always good.
Which is really important in any industrial setting.
Yeah, yeah.
The more you can reduce downtime, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep those machines running.
Yeah. The report also talks about Industry 4.0.
Yes.
That's a term we hear a lot.
We do.
What does it mean in this context?
So, Industry 4.0 is all about integrating digital technologies. Things like the Internet of Things. Cloud computing. Artificial intelligence.
AI.
Right, into industrial processes.
Okay, so for these machines...
you're talking about IoT-enabled monitoring systems.
Okay.
So they can provide real-time data on their performance.
So you can kind of predict when things...
Exactly. Predictive maintenance. Wow. You can anticipate problems before they cause a breakdown.
Oh, wow.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
And we're also seeing robotic bending systems being developed.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's even getting more automated.
Yeah, further enhancing those automation capabilities.
Wow. Okay, so now let's talk about, who the big players are.
Okay.
And geographically, where the demand is.
Yeah, regional market share.
Right, because that's interesting.
Yeah.
The breakdown.
It is. So Asia Pacific, they held the largest share in 2024.
Okay.
At about 40%. And this is really driven by construction, automotive.
Makes sense.
Huge growth in those industries.
Yep.
Infrastructure investments as well, especially China, India, Japan.
Right, yeah. Big growth there.
Big growth, and it's projected to keep growing to 41% by 2025, with a CBR of 8.5%.
So that's a huge chunk of the market.
Yeah, a very significant portion.
Yeah, what about the other regions?
Yeah, so North America accounts for about 30%.
Okay.
And there, demand is really influenced by aerospace and defense.
Makes sense, yeah.
They need very precise metal fabrication.
Right.
Europe holds about 22% share.
Okay.
And there, it's mechanical engineering and industrial manufacturing.
So Asia Pacific kind of leading the way.
Yeah, strong growth there.
North America.
Strong growth.
Kind of a solid second with specialized demand.
Yeah, that's right.
And Europe.
And Europe also a key player.
Okay, so who are the companies, what are the big names?
Yeah, so it's a competitive market.
Yeah.
The report identifies BLM Giro UP as the leader in 2024 with a 6.15% market share.
Okay.
Closely followed by Noom Alliance at 6.7%.
Okay.
And Electra Pneumatics at 5.24%.
Okay.
So these are the big players. They're constantly investing in research and development to improve precision, automation, efficiency.
Makes sense.
And they engage in collaborations, acquisitions,
Yeah.
to kind of expand their presence.
Yeah.
And the report suggests that competition will probably intensify in 2025,
Okay.
especially in those emerging markets
Right,
where
yeah.
there's so much potential.
So, we've got these established companies
Yeah.
competing for share,
Yeah,
and then these new opportunities opening up.
exactly.
Yeah, okay. The report also gives us a really interesting statistic on just the overall market share that these machines represent within metal forming equipment.
Right. So in 2024, pipe and tube bending machines accounted for 55% of the overall market
Wow.
for metal forming equipment.
So it's not just a little part of the market, it's a big part.
It's a majority, yeah.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that CNC machines are leading the way.
So the computer-controlled machines are really...
Yeah, highlighting the importance of automation
Yeah.
and consistent performance.
Right. And that share is expected to grow.
Yeah, it's projected to increase to 57% by 2025.
Okay.
And this is because of Industry 4.0,
Great.
robotics,
Okay.
and the increasing demand for lightweight, high-strength tubing.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it really underscores the preference for automation.
Okay. So, yeah, they're not just a small part of the metal forming world.
Yeah, not at all.
They're, a huge and growing majority.
That's right.
Okay, that gives a good picture of the trends.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, what's happening with the technology.
All right, so
Like the advancements and new trends.
technological advancements, yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. As we've already touched on, automation, AI, digital manufacturing.
Yeah.
These are fundamentally reshaping this market.
Right.
They're transforming how these machines operate,
Yeah.
reducing cycle times, minimizing defects.
Right. So big changes.
Big changes, not just small improvements.
Yeah. Okay.
And, one interesting trend is this emergence of what's called hybrid bending technology.
Yeah. What is that?
So hybrid bending refers to machines that are designed to combine multiple bending methods.
Oh.
So, in the past, you might have needed different machines for different types of bends.
Right.
But now you can have one machine that can do it all.
Wow. So it's more versatile.
More versatile, more
Yeah,
efficient.
right.
Particularly for complex parts.
Okay. And the report also highlights some specific innovations from companies.
Yeah.
Let's dive into those a bit more.
Okay, so in 2023,
Yeah.
BLM Group UUP, they came out with this AI-powered CNC bending machine. And the big innovation there is real-time adaptive control.
Okay.
So the machine is constantly monitoring and adjusting the bending process as it's happening using AI.
So the machine's learning as it goes.
It's learning as it goes, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Leading to greater accuracy,
Correct.
less wasted material.
Yeah. Okay.
So really impressive.
Yeah. What about Noom Alliance? What were they doing?
So Noom Alliance, they were focused on energy efficiency and precision.
Okay.
They came up with this advanced electric servo-driven tube bending system.
Okay.
So, we talked about electric servo drives earlier.
Right.
They offer more precise control.
Yeah.
And they use less energy
Yeah.
than traditional hydraulics.
Okay. So they're more sustainable.
Yeah, more sustainable.
Yeah. What about electropneumatics? What were they up to?
So electropneumatics, they integrated IoT-enabled sensors into their machines.
Okay.
This allows for predictive maintenance.
Right. Right.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
Identifying problems before they happen. And they also implemented remote diagnostics.
Okay.
So if there is an issue, it can be troubleshooted and repaired much faster.
Okay. So less downtime.
Less downtime.
Yeah. Okay.
So these are all really pointing towards smarter, more efficient,
Yeah.
more reliable machines.
Yeah.
And, it's no surprise that Asia Pacific is leading the way in adopting these technologies.
Oh, that makes sense.
As we said, they're the fastest growing region,
Right.
projected to reach 41% by 2025.
Right.
And this is because they're investing heavily in manufacturing automation.
Okay. So, yeah, the trend is towards greater automation,
Yeah.
intelligence, efficiency,
Yeah.
Asia Pacific at the forefront.
Exactly.
So that leads us to, what does the future hold? What are the opportunities?
Yeah, so the future looks bright.
Yeah.
There's this ever-increasing need for precision manufacturing and automation
Makes sense.
across all those key industries.
Right.
Automotive, aerospace, construction, energy.
Right. We need more precise.
We need more precise,
Yeah.
more complex products.
Yeah.
So the demand is only going to grow.
Okay. And the role of these machines in what we call smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0.
Yeah, that's going to be really crucial.
Yeah.
Because, smart manufacturing is all about using data,
Right.
using automation
Yes.
to improve efficiency
Yeah.
and reduce errors.
Yeah.
And these machines are a perfect fit for that.
Right.
They can be connected, they can be controlled, they can generate data.
Yeah. Okay. The report also highlights, energy efficiency and precision as being particularly important in the automotive and aerospace sectors.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So in automotive,
Yeah.
there's this big push for fuel efficiency.
Right.
And to achieve that, you need lighter vehicles.
Right. Yeah.
So they're using these lightweight, high-strength materials,
Okay.
which require very precise bending.
Oh, okay.
And then in aerospace,
Yeah.
precision is critical for safety.
Right. Of course.
Right. You need those components to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So these industries need bending solutions that can deliver on those requirements.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's this global push for sustainability, which, we talked about.
Yeah. And that's creating opportunities for companies that can develop eco-friendly solutions.
So machines that use less energy.
Less energy, less waste.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Maybe even made from sustainable materials themselves.
Right. Right. Yeah. What about construction? We talked about that earlier.
Construction,
A key driver.
it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, think about infrastructure projects,
Yeah.
bridges, stadiums, skyscrapers.
Yeah.
They all need these precisely bent metal structures.
Right.
And as those projects continue to grow
Yeah.
globally,
The demand grows.
the demand for these machines will grow as well.
Yeah. Okay. And this, increasing role of robotic automation.
Yeah, so robots can do a lot of things that humans can't.
Right.
They can work faster, they can be more precise. Yeah.
And they can reduce labor costs.
Right.
So as robots get more sophisticated
Yeah.
and easier to use,
Yeah.
we're going to see them being used more and more in bending.
Okay, and finally, this integration of what we call smart technologies.
Yeah, so sensors, AI, all of that.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
It allows for real-time monitoring,
Right.
predictive maintenance, quality control.
Yeah. So the machines can kind of, fix themselves or...
Well, not fix themselves, but
Right.
anticipate problems.
Yeah, right.
So you can fix them before they cause a breakdown,
Right, right.
which is really valuable.
Okay, so yeah, the future looks bright, lots of opportunity.
Yeah, but there are challenges too.
Right. The report does mention that,
It does.
there are some things that the industry needs to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of the big ones?
So one of the biggest challenges is the initial investment cost.
Right, these machines are probably not cheap.
They're not cheap.
Especially the advanced ones with all the bells and whistles.
Right.
So that can be a barrier.
Especially for smaller companies.
It's actually for small and medium-sized enterprises, yeah.
Right.
They may not have the capital
Right.
to invest in these technologies.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's this whole issue of, these machines are complex.
Yeah, they are.
You need skilled labor.
You need people who know how to operate them, how
Yeah.
to maintain them.
Right.
And in some regions, there's a shortage of skilled labor.
Okay, so that's a challenge.
That's a big challenge.
Right.
Finding people who can actually use these machines to their full potential.
Yeah, yeah. And the costs, they don't stop after you buy the machine.
No, the costs continue.
Yeah.
Maintenance, operation, those costs are ongoing.
Right.
You need to service them, calibrate them, replace parts.
Right.
And downtime can be really costly,
Yeah, of course.
especially in high volume production.
Right.
So managing those costs is a big challenge.
Okay, and what about the raw materials? Like steel and aluminum?
Yeah.
Those prices can fluctuate.
Yeah, they can.
So how does that affect things?
So fluctuations in raw material prices can directly impact production costs.
Right.
And that can affect profitability.
Yeah.
Companies have to adjust their pricing strategies.
Right, so it's a factor they have to consider.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
So managing those fluctuations is important.
Yeah. And then lastly, there are these environmental concerns.
Yes, environmental concerns are becoming increasingly important
Right.
in all sorts of industrial processes,
Yeah.
including this one.
Yeah, yeah.
So, these machines can generate heat.
Okay.
They can produce waste.
Yeah.
So companies need to comply with regulations
Right.
regarding emissions and waste disposal.
Yeah.
And that often means investing in cleaner technologies.
Or sustainable solutions.
More sustainable solutions, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, there's a lot of potential for growth, but these challenges need to be addressed.
They do.
Right. Companies need to be aware of them.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's look ahead.
All right.
What are some of the things we might expect in the future?
Yeah, what's next? Well, there's a big focus on next generation machines.
Okay.
We're going to see continuous improvements in efficiency, precision, automation.
Okay, and the report actually mentions a specific example.
Yeah. They give you?
AMOB, the CH350.
Yeah. So AMO introduced this machine in 2024.
Okay.
And it's a really good example of the state of the art.
Okay.
Enhanced bending capabilities, greater accuracy, efficiency.
So they're pushing the boundaries.
They're pushing the boundaries.
Okay.
This is what we can expect to see more of.
Yeah. Yeah. And the role of these Industry 4.0 technologies.
Right. That's going to be crucial.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to be even more important.
Yeah. So smart machines with sensors, cloud connectivity, AI.
Yeah.
This is going to be the norm.
Okay.
It's going to allow for optimized production, real-time monitoring, reduced downtime.
Okay. So, yeah, lots of potential there.
Lots of potential.
And it's also interesting that advancements in material science are playing a role.
They are, yeah.
We're seeing machines that can handle more types of materials.
That's right. So things like high-strength alloys, composite materials.
Yeah.
So this is going to expand the applications, especially in areas like aerospace and renewable energy.
Right, yeah.
Which rely on those advanced materials.
Okay. And then the role of automation and robotics.
Yeah, so we can expect to see even more automation.
Okay.
Less manual intervention, greater precision.
Okay.
And the rise of collaborative robots.
Right. Those are the robots that can work alongside humans.
Exactly. They're designed to be safe.
Right, yeah.
So they're going to enhance efficiency and safety.
Right, okay. So it sounds like, companies really need to be on top of their game.
Yeah, they need to be innovative.
Yeah.
They need to adapt to these changes.
Yeah.
And they need to invest in R&D.
Research and development.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Right. Okay, so to kind of wrap it all up.
Okay.
The pipe and tube bending machine market.
Yeah.
It's on a path of growth.
Yes.
Driven by these core industries.
That's right.
Needing this precision manufacturing.
Yeah.
More automation.
More automation, exactly.
And, these technological advancements, CNC machines, AI, they're improving productivity.
Yeah, reducing waste.
Yeah.
Improving quality.
Yeah, okay.
And the shift towards electric and hybrid machines.
Right.
More energy efficient.
Right.
More sustainable.
Yeah.
Aligning with those global trends.
Yeah. And those challenges are still there. The cost.
Yeah, the cost.
Skilled labor. Environmental regulations.
Yeah. Those are all important considerations.
Right. But overall,
I think the outlook is positive.
Yeah.
R&D is continuing, and that's going to lead to even more innovation.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the key takeaway for the listener?
I think the key takeaway is that this is a dynamic and evolving market. It's being shaped by technology.
Yeah.
And the needs of major industries.
Yeah.
So understanding these trends is really valuable for anyone who's involved in manufacturing or infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. And as we kind of think about the future, this increasing role of AI and robotics, it raises an interesting question, I think, for the listener.
Yeah, it does.
How might the role of human operators, change in this industry?
What skills will be needed?
Yeah, in this more automated environment.
Exactly.
Yeah, something to think about.
Definitely.
So this deep dive, it's just a snapshot.
Right.
There's always more to explore.
Always more.
Specific applications, different regions.
Yeah.
The impact of new materials.
New materials, absolutely.
So keep learning, keep exploring.
Keep digging.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.